Hey guys, welcome back to the Baby Playbook podcast. We are, of course, a podcast that explores everything to do with pregnancy, baby 0 to 12-ish month mark, and really just the kind of craziness of this baby period that is kind of very overwhelming for some parents, which was very overwhelming for me with my first as well. So I want to get all this information out there, not just my own personal, advice and experiences, but also speaking to a whole heap of different experts about what they know about babies, how it can help us, and of course their own personal experiences as well. I'm excited for today's episode because it's a bit of a fun one. I am joined today by Emma Wilson, who's the editor of Snow Action magazine and the partnerships person for Adventure Entertainment. Her particular Instagram, it's called Snow Action. I'm going to link it in a show notes. She's also a co-host of her own travel podcast called Loving the Snow Life, and she's also a mum as well. You've got 4 kids, 3 of your own, an older stepson, and you've really traveled extensively during your time with a parent. And this is what we're talking about today, traveling with babies or traveling with kids, because it is something that a lot of people would like to do and would like to think they can do, even before having kids. So we're going to talk about, how to make it easier, how to adjust, how to keep flexible and that sort of thing. Thank you so much for joining me, Emma.
Oh, that's all right. Thanks for having me on. This is fun and a very, very handy topic. I would have liked it myself.
I know. And you know what, Emma, I was thinking about when we were going to record this, and I always see these really funny reels online, on Instagram coming through of people saying, when you see influencers traveling with their baby and they have these really beautiful photos of their kids really excited at the airport, or the baby sleeping in the little bassinet in the plane. And it's always talking about how, it's not documenting the nightmare side of traveling with babies, which I'm sure there is. But can you tell me, when it comes to traveling, whether it is, short distance, long distance, is it always worth it with a baby? What's your experience been?
Well, I've got to say, I see those reels as well, and then they've got the baby and they're in the first class seat and laid out. I'm like, I've never even been turned left on the plane. So yeah, it is kind of fun. I think it's always worth it, only because I know as mums, as parents, we're all different. And I was not that parent that felt a deep sense of comfort and organisation from merely staying at home. But I know that I was surrounded by many that were. So they would tell me that they will travel when the kids are older, the kids are in a routine and, life is predictable, and that gave them a very good sense of calm and, reassuredness and organisation. For me, that felt like a trap. Oh my gosh, you might as well just put me in a room on a schedule, throw away the key. I feel like, for me, the thing that's what I say, we're all different as parents, because for me, the thing that made me feel alive and that life wasn't passing me by and that I felt life was good is I just kept going. And I'm not saying it was easy at all. Certainly I have, I've developed my list, my repertoire of tools and skills and procedures that I've written down extensive notes to share with you today about how we managed to get through those years. To be honest, my youngest is 12, and I can say that we have children that are flexible, life throws them different things, and they just roll with it. And I'm sure it's through a lifetime of just airports and different things going sideways. So, is it worth it? It depends what you value.
Yeah, it is so, and that's the thing, it is so personal, and it is so much of, how do you want your life to be at the time, what gives you comfort, what excites you during that time, because it is a time when, you're being asked of a lot from you all the time, and sometimes you have to think, well, what's going to make me happy, what's something that I can look forward to, or what's something that I can enjoy during this time. So I love that you bring that up.
I also think it's about mental health, what gives you your best mental health. And if your mental health is staying at home and, being in a predictable thing, great, fantastic. But for me, it comes back to like I need to look forward to going somewhere good.
That light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I want to talk about, I guess, I don't know if this is the way to put it, but like age appropriate traveling. So of course, the baby playbook is all about from newborn right up until around that 12-month mark. So you're getting into like toddler traveling. I'd love to know what your tips are in terms of that age appropriateness and what to expect from all those different phases of a baby.
I mean, I think big picture wise, the younger they are, the more they're going to stay still and be lighter to carry, more portable. And obviously, the longer you wait, the more they'll be alert and awake and wriggly. But they all have their pros and cons. So if you go earlier, especially I would have to say the more kids you have. So first time mums, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, we don't.
We don't know, we just don't. That's what first time experiences are like. So
Yeah.
so by our very nature, we're going to get our confidence the more maybe if we have another kid or another one, or, that kind of thing. We've got a bit of a benchmark, but so yeah, I mean the up to let's call it newborn to 3 months, they're going to obviously sleep a lot, which is handy for you, and but at the same time you've got to recover from the birth, whatever that looked like. You still have to get them a passport, and you're going to be sleep deprived. And so for me, I depending on where I went at the time, probably wasn't rushing to kind of like from the hospital out the door for a holiday. But there's things that come up, a family, wedding somewhere or
Yeah.
a
An
funeral, things.
overnighter.
Yeah, things come up. Yeah. Um, so yeah, 3 to 6 months is a good time. They're sleeping a lot. They're still light to carry. And this is obviously, fairly loose kind of descriptor, but 6 to 9 months, they're getting a little bit wrigglier, and they are the activity. I would say that is one of the earmarks of the travel, is that just don't expect to do anything. These people that think they can read a whole novel and watch 3 movies, they are kidding themselves. You've got your baby, just enjoy your baby. Your baby is the activity. And then 9 to 12 months, they might be, they're going to be a lot more alert. They might be standing up and a lot more
Yeah.
active, that kind of thing, depending on when they start walking. But yeah, they'll be standing up and stuff. So yeah, I think you were sort of saying what's the best time to travel. There's pros and cons
To
to all
each
those ages.
period. Yeah. And I guess that it's helpful to know that, because then you can kind of adjust your planning accordingly. You'd probably say that, like, let's say you need to do a long haul flight, you wouldn't need to think too much about the time of it and whatever else when you have a newborn. But perhaps when you do have that 9-month-old, it's handy to have a night flight, or, you could just kind of make those adjustments as you need,
Yes.
which would be helpful. Can I ask you, is it a myth? Because I actually I've only done a long haul flight with my oldest when he was 3. Is it a myth, or is it still a thing where babies are free under 6 months on a plane? I feel like we all just heard that when growing up. Is
Yeah,
that still a thing?
every airline has different rules, but a lot of the time they have a rule that if they are sitting on your lap, and not taking up a seat, they can on it. Some airlines be free, and others they're just a token amount there. Yeah, infant, which is probably a big motivator for like, let's
Yeah.
this year, not next year, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder as well, like, how long you can really stretch that out. If you're like rocking up with this like 14-month-old and you're like, yes, they're sitting on my lap.
Well,
Bit-
yeah, it depends. Some kids are so tiny, and then others are
That's true.
big. Yeah,
Yeah.
and whether they, my mum always laughs and says when I got my youngest as a daughter, and she said, "Oh, you got your daughter," and she's just as wriggly as anything. She said,
Yeah.
you thought you were going to get one that sat nicely at the cafe with a hot chocolate, but no, you got a wriggly climber not just a runner, but a climber,
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
depends on the baby as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, whilst we're on the topic of flights, do you have any tips on flights? How to tackle them, how to prepare, and even some potentially
Yeah.
some gadgets that you can share as well?
hmm Yeah. So I think the main one I want to say first up is what I notice every time I jump on a plane, if I think about, you know, uh, over, let's call it, my kids are not 20 yet, but if we call it 2 decades, um, seems to be, I get on planes recently and the parents seem very apologetic. And I want to say to
Mm,
parents, do not go around apologizing to anyone. You have paid to get on that flight like everyone else. And I don't care how cranky anyone else is. They're adults. They can manage their own emotions and behavior and expectations. You do not apologize for being there. You don't apologize for your kids, don't apologize for your baby. They are babies. I mean, is the guy down in 6B, is he going to apologize for talking loudly, or the moves in the
yeah,
middle of the
true.
night, or the guys that get drunk, or the loud girl? Like, no, they're not. So I would just want to eliminate, stop apologizing. We've just got this culture where we have to, it's getting worse. It's kind of,
Yeah,
so I just want to say perceptions, just get on and own it. It's your flight. You've paid for the ticket and you have entitled to be there. I would
love it.
say get on the plane last but um, and then try and get off early if you can. Even if you've got to go up and make yourself known, just say, is there any chance we can get off early just to the what are they called now? Hosties,
Steward,
flight
yeah.
attendants, steward, yeah. Just so they know, squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Mm,
If you don't ask, you don't get.
yeah.
Um, Ask for the bulkhead because you do have a bit of space. The bulkhead is those seats at the front of each section that have a little bit more space. They've got a baby carrier up the top, but I wouldn't trust those baby
Yeah.
carriers. I mean, last time I was on a plane 2 weeks ago, I stood up and hit my head on one and one came down. So I would say the space, and if you've got older babies, the mess, so you can spread the mess out.
Yeah.
It's a perfect spot to put like a 11 or 12 months old
Yeah.
just standing the whole time because they can just
Mm,
clamor. So it's more for the space than the, the bassinet. If you get your head around the fact that they'll probably spend most of the time sleeping on you,
mm,
you're not going to get a nasty shock when you get on there and realize that that's going to be the case. It's just, oh, well, like they're going to be sleeping on me. Make sure you're wearing old clothes. So when you travel, don't wear anything good or anything that you've got to think that, oh my God, my top's ruined. Just wear old clothes, put them in old clothes, bring more and more old clothes. So like just things that are about destined for the bin, or go to Vinnie's and just pick up
mm.
some stuff. And then you don't care about anything. You just, oh, well, they've vomited on me.
Yeah. Move on.
Change it over, put it in the bin when it's finished, that kind of thing. And the same as them, like earrings,
Yeah. Keep it
aids,
super simple, clean. Yeah.
clean. You can bring like if you've got, depending, my kids were in disposables, but nappies, but they're also in, for one of my sons, he was in reusable.
Mm.
And I found it was a pain. We went to Canada and it was like a great idea, but just leave them at home for those trips because then you're just carting around this heavy disposable nappy filled with urine that
Yeah.
it was a pain. So just leave them at home, disposable. You're not gonna, you can plant some trees when you get home if you feel
Yeah.
bad. And bring an eye patch for yourself. Like you're largely managing yourself. I feel that on the plane, if you're wearing your baby, and if you've got your old gear on, they've got old gear on, and you've got a eye patch, and if they will let you put it on them, an eye patch for them, because it's so
Mm.
fluorescent,
Yeah.
um,
To help with sleeping. Yeah.
to help with sleeping. I don't know if your babies will let you put ear things on them. I
Little
couldn't put
earmuffs. Yeah.
all that kind of thing.
Well, I love that. I really love that concept that you've said as well. They are the activity, because I think it'd be good now to talk about a little bit about trip planning and itinerary. And,
Mm-hmm.
as well in here is kind of expectations, right? Is resetting your expectations of what the holiday actually looks like, based on baby, where you're going, time traveling, all that sort of stuff. Because I know, when I used to go on trips just myself or with my husband or friends, it was a lot of like, go, 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 let's get in as many places as we can see today. But of course, when you do have a child or a baby, you have to set a bit of a slower pace. So, that's one thing. But any advice here on trip planning and itineraries and expectation?
Well, I think it depends on your destination. Like if you're going to Europe, there's some little things that I think of, like, it's quite a, historical sort of place in the world. So a lot of the streets are cobbled streets. So therefore your prams don't really work.
Great observation.
So therefore, okay, I'm going to Europe. We're going to, fill in the blanks there. Bring the kind of pram where it's like a mountain buggy, something that's more rugged, but also narrow. I had a mountain buggy, that was good. But when I went to Europe, I took a fold up, just a stroller, and they just did not work. I just had to abandon it.
Oh my gosh. And do you know the thing, it's funny that you bring that up, because I remember we went to it was just Hobart for a weekend with the kids, and I remember we didn't have a stroller, and my first thought was, I'm not going to invest in this like high quality hundreds of dollars stroller. I went to Kmart, I got a stroller, and I was like, if it breaks, I don't care. And guess what? Third day it broke. We chucked it in the trash and we came home without a stroller, and it was totally okay. It kind of served its purpose. We were leaving on the fourth day anyway.
There's a lot of the places you can plan ahead, and you can hire somewhere for them to sleep, or prams and anything like that. But most of the time when I travel somewhere, I would travel with two other items that are quite good, and that is the IKEA brand, what do you call it? High chair. Because
yes,
it's light, you can dismantle it, and it's amazing.
Clean it really easily.
Clean it, hose it down. You can, it's incredibly hard wearing, and if you throw it away, it's not that expensive. But wherever we went, we would always, I travelled with a piece of plastic, this lightweight or whatever, and you put it underneath the high chair, and you can strap, depending on the age of your baby. But if your baby's sitting up and taking food and stuff, you can strap them in there, and you can put activities and stuff like and then the bumbo is fantastic.
Is that the sitting one that's like you can sit them anywhere? It has a little tray table. Yeah.
Well, you can get the tray. I didn't have the tray table one, but that was quite good for sort of like putting them in there, because you can pop their legs in there, and depending on the age and the stage they're at. But if they're at the bumbo stage, that's quite good for, like, I have to have a shower now, I'm on my own.
Yes.
I'm going to sit them in the bumbo with something,
Yeah.
so that I can actually get changed. Toys that are that go the distance. I've seen some on Instagram recently that I thought, oh my gosh, I would love that if my babies were babies now. But it's like you can get a book that every page,
a busy book.
A busy book, yeah.
Yes, we've got one of those. Yeah, those are staples now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I just always had like toys that up one end they were crunchy, crunch are good, and then the other end was something else, that kind of stuff. Just lots of different sort of busy things like that. Yeah, I think as well, like planning ahead for when you're standing around time. Like one of them would be, I would say just expect the worst. So expect that you're going to stand in line for a long time at customs, waiting to go through at customs. Maybe you won't, but at least you've anticipated for it. So you can just make sure you have one spare nappy and for that time, and some food, or at least some water and maybe some snacks. Just reducing those kind of stressful moments.
And you shared kind of some great tips there on, I guess, gadgets and things, and, the best type of pram, or to think about what type of pram you're bringing along for what type of trip and that sort of thing. I'd love to also ask you about what, I know, things that you've managed to kind of ask for from hotels or in Airbnbs and things like that. I know that we did like a little staycation with my little one when he was about 12 months old. And I remember I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to call the hotel and see what they have before I bring, his cot sheet and this and that and a white noise machine and all the things I was going to pack. And I realized, you can ask them to set up the cot. It's got all the bedding in there. I remember they also had like a alarm clock next to the bed that was also like a speaker. So instead of bringing the white noise machine, I just connected the speaker and played white noise off my phone all night. So just to really limit the packing situation.
Yeah.
What are some things we can take advantage of?
Yeah, I agree. I think you can absolutely plan ahead if you have the time to ask some questions like that. Anything you think you're using, like, I mean, do you have a pram, and they might say no, but I can get one from this rental place down the road, and then you can find out that it might be actually cheaper to get everything just there. And I would say on the flip side of all that, I would have discovered that when they say, oh, yes, we have a car seat, and yes, we have a baby, like a pack and play or something, they're not necessarily the ones that I would like, or they might not be clean. So the things I've already said the things that I would bring, but in terms of sleeping, a lot of the times that I've got somewhere and they've said, yes, we have baby cots, it's a cot that is very dangerous. Australia actually has really good safety standards in terms of that kind of stuff. So maybe just find out or ask them to send you a photo.
Yeah.
You have the more lead time, the better, really. And then just check those things. Yep. And baby car seats. A lot of people travel with them. I didn't. But just be careful of that because we have very different standards. Also, I forgot to mention as well, just be careful if you go somewhere. A lot of the countries like Europe and Asia still have rules about there's a lot of smoke-filled places. So just maybe take that into account. I don't know. I was in Paris with my baby and just going, oh, wow, these places are quite smoky. But,
good to know.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Maybe if you have a say in where you can have a holiday, you might want to build that in. At the time, I didn't have much say because I was there with my mum for her like milestone birthday, but I figured she's all right now.
Great.
Yes, so those kind of things.
Yeah, amazing. And the other thing as well is, I think, and I only know this because I ran a little Airbnb for a part of my life recently. If you are going for that, like if you are hiring a home or, renting a home or Airbnb or whatever it may be, to know that it actually can, you can get quite personal with the host and just explain your situation, ask whether there's, things that I think were really helpful. And I had this in my Airbnb only because I had kids. So I was very like mindful that families were coming. Some Airbnbs will have a little toy play corner. Some will have, Disney Plus on the TV. Some will have, plastic plates and cutlery. So things that you don't have to think about. Of course, this is if you're staying in something like that. But that's also really helpful to even just check, just say, hey, we're bringing along a 12-month-old, 6-month-old. I'm just wondering what kind of kid-friendly things you have just before I pack any of my stuff.
Yeah,
I think that's really reasonable. Can I ask, Emma, sleep on the go? Because this is something that does get quite anxiety inducing for some parents when they're thinking about going on a holiday. We mentioned at the start, there's some parents or mums and dads that feel really comfortable at home because they have a routine. So, 2 big naps a day and they're like, oh, I can't do that on the go. They're not going to sleep or whatever it may be. Of course, I know, one of the things that we've been talking about is being a little bit more flexible and being a little bit more like realistic that perhaps, they're not going to do a whole 2-hour nap. But do you have any tips for that, for managing, that sleep on the go and being a little bit more flexible with it?
Yeah, I think sleep when they sleep is really good because if you think, okay, they are asleep, I finally got them to sleep, now I'm going to watch a movie. That's why I keep saying just forget about all that because then you don't know what's going to happen in the next stage. So you
Yeah.
finish the movie, they wake up, and then maybe they won't sleep for a long time. But if you
Yeah.
keep yourself napping when they are, you're going to both be a little bit better rested. I also noticed, because I know I was in a state of like asking everyone as well. It's like, what do you do if they don't sleep or whatever? And the thing is, they do eventually sleep, and the
True.
time zones do eventually tee up. So I think all of us, including myself, spend a very large amount of time worrying about time zone changes when really it may take, I know this sounds like a really long time, but it may take 2 days, a day or
Mm.
two to adjust. And you'll all be, depending on where you've gone, you all might be a bit grisly and disgusting,
Yeah.
but you'll all get there. It will happen. And I think we all, including myself, be caught up on all these details of, I'm not going to be able to get them to sleep. It's now 11 o'clock in Australia, and it's 8 o'clock where I am right now. We all, as human beings, eventually get tired and fall asleep. So yeah, it is hard to get our head around that,
Mm.
but you get to the other end of it.
You know, for example, just even taking that into consideration. So if you are going on or if you can go on a bit of a longer trip to allow to say, let's just assume the first 2 days are a write-off, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
rather than planning out this trip where you're like, great, we're going to be in this city for 4 or 5 days, but then you actually lose 2 days and everyone's upset about it and everything's been pushed back, you know?
yeah, I would definitely say that, like, go somewhere, if you have any choice in the matter, where you're going somewhere and you're staying there, even if that's a base and you're going to, you know,
Mm,
and then you come home, rather than the kind of itinerary we had pre-children where we would just keep moving all the time. But you can do that when they're a little bit older if you have any
yes.
say in the matter. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we're running out of a little bit of time, Emma, but I did want to finish with, and you've already brought something up there as well, is you mentioned, you know, some places are a little bit more polluted, you know, or there's a lot of like smoking. And so you need to kind of sometimes just think about where you're going and how old baby is and if that's, you know, concerning you. That is kind of also something you got to consider. You know, sometimes when you travel, the first thought is, oh, what if something happens with the baby, or what if I need medical attention? Is it somewhere that I feel comfortable taking them, for example, to a hospital or to the
Mhm.
pharmacy? Um, and in terms of just like safety and, you know, what do they sit in a car seat in the cars, or do they not have car seats for kids, like whatever it may be?
Mm.
What's your advice there in making sure that, you know, you kind of aware of where you're going, what the regulations are, all that sort of stuff?
If you have any say in the matter, if you have a choice of where you're going, the baby's time is a time, I think, that is not, this is not the time to do the Kokoda Trail or in the jungle somewhere. We've all done that pre-children, and we will do it
Yeah.
again when they are a little bit older. But maybe this is just a time frame to do something where you're meeting in the middle about what represents something reasonable where there is medical care down the road. And it may not be like, I'm not somebody who wants to necessarily sit around a pool at a resort. That for me is like, I like something a little bit more adventurous, but you can meet in the middle with it. And if you go somewhere and just know these are places, even if you say Bali, like
Mm,
I've been there with my kids, and somebody's got a rash, and it was when my son he has this thing where he can't put sunscreen on him, and we only discovered that when we're in actually Lombok. But there's places with pharmacies, there's places with hospitals. Just choose somewhere that there's care within an hour. I would say it's not the
yeah.
time for Tanzania camping, I don't think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that will still be there. We just
Yes.
just try
Yeah.
and be like, manage your expectations, I'd say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. As with everything that we've talked about today as well. Well, thank you so much, Emma. It's really nice to chat to somebody, and it's also nice to chat to someone who, you know, believes that it is definitely doable, and you know, there are those challenges, but if you kind of plan a little bit ahead, you think ahead, you make some key decisions in what you're bringing and gadgets and things like that, it can actually be a really, really enjoyable experience. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast to chat more about it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Enjoy. Get out there.